Maybe just before you start, maybe talk a little bit about MassMutual and your footprint in terms of financial products and kind of where you sit in the marketplace.
Yeah, Paul, we can absolutely do that. I think we're just waiting on one more panelist to join. Our fearless leader, Kristin Lane, should be on here in just a second. But I suppose as we're waiting there, I'll get it started and ask everyone to support me here. So we're one of the largest life insurance providers in the country, primarily whole life sales, but we also sell term life insurance. But we are a comprehensive financial services company that offers annuities, 529 and college planning, all types of retirement savings options, wealth planning through our 7,500 financial advisors that work directly with clients. But additionally, we create products that can be purchased through any number of different financial institutions. So I see Kristin coming on now. Kristin, we're introducing MassMutual, the brand, and just kind of what we sell and what our footprint is in the marketplace. I touched on a few products, but I'd love to kick it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Hello, everybody. Sorry for that little glitch in the beginning there. Great to be here today. We have a lot to talk about. You know, we really appreciate the brand Innovators pulling our team together to talk about what we do behind the scenes and the future of media. So MassMutual, it's a 170-plus-year-old company. We are based in Massachusetts. We've got a brand new, beautiful headquarters down in the seaport of Boston, which is considered the innovation district. And at the end of this, we're going to talk about some of the open roles we have. So what we're hoping will come across is not only how smart and collaborative the team is, but also we're looking for new marketers to join us, and we'll run through the open roles we have. But MassMutual as a brand, you know, our purpose is at the core of our purpose is what you could call, you know, sort of a social, you know, like almost like an ESG kind of principle. Our purpose is to help people secure their futures and to protect the ones they love. And so, you know, we've been doing this for 170 plus years. We have gone through a transformation of the brand in the last 5 years into a much more of a modern, data-driven digital company. And our strategy for the brand has really been focused on building top-line awareness to consumers. And as we've grown our metrics in terms of awareness, we're now able to move our target audiences, which we call new and motivated parents, and we're going to get into more of this, but down the purchase funnel. And the interesting thing about our business model is that MassMutual serves both distribution, which Alex touched on, but also manufacturing. We make a lot of products that are distributed through other third parties like Fidelity. And so really the role of the brand is to ensure that at point of sale, whether it's through likely an intermediary, sometimes direct to consumer, but mostly sold through intermediaries like financial advisors, that when, you know, an application gets handed across the table, a consumer feels good about the brand. And so that's what this team is really here to do. Thanks. Is that a good setup?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so and Paul teed it up perfectly. We wanted to talk about the larger brand purpose and proposition of MassMutual. So we have the distinct challenge of talking about the future of media and also getting behind the brand of MassMutual in now less than 40 minutes. So when we brainstormed, it was an amazing conversation, can attest to how awesome this team is. The 3 pillars we decided to focus on is firstly, just changes in organizational alignment and MassMutual's new playbook. Then we're going to dive into those discoveries from that new playbook and its future impact on media and marketing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what's next and exciting and upcoming initiatives for MassMutual as a brand, and maybe some predictions, as we always love to do in the media world, that people are thinking about. So first, we wanted to dive into the changes in the organizational alignment at MassMutual and how you're building out a new playbook. Firstly, I think we talked about just how many new things that you're taking on. You plan across multiple teams, multiple agencies, multiple channels. So I'd love for someone to dive in and talk about how they've now built alignment across the whole org and how that's changed fundamentally for you all.
Well, I'll start off at the highest level and then invite others to kind of to build on this. But within the last year, we've gone through a complete reorganizational alignment. You know, during the sort of following the pandemic, or I guess we're still in it. So over the last year, all of marketing has been consolidated under one leader, Jennifer Halloran, who's our CMO. And I know she's been a guest of Brand Innovators in the past. But the entire team came together, all the marketers from distribution and then from different centers of excellence throughout the company. So with this new alignment, we've really been focused on kind of building scalable and repeatable programs and processes. And with that said, you know, we've also been fortunate enough in partnership with Bridget and her team and our data science partners to have multi-touch attribution model now, and a media mix model that is predictive and it can inform specific ROI that we're driving into the business. And I don't know if anybody wants to jump in there, but that's a pretty rich kind of new, you know, in terms of like new things. I think we feel really fortunate that we have this model in place and can point specifically to the value of marketing and brand to the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think, Kristin, just to hit on that reorg, we centralized internally as a marketing organization, but we also centralized all of our agency partners. So there has been a lot more rigor in a good way, in a positive way, around what partners we work with. You know, we started a new relationship with Gray. We started a new relationship with Firewood, who has become Media Monks. And just looking at what these agencies deliver, how they align with what MassMutual really stands for, and how they can push the work forward. And I think, you know, a lot of places call their agencies suppliers, but we really like to think of them. And I think in practice, we also treat them like an extension of our team and as true partners. So with changes internally came changes externally, and now the dust has settled, and it's really exciting just to see the work that is coming out of these partnerships.
I think we wanted to dive in next into how much more insight driven you've become across your efforts, and namely how you've been able to now take both B2C and B2B and interact them more, and how that's been reimagined for you. I know, Bailey, that was a big part of your endeavor, and any other teammates that want to hop in and talk about that.
Yeah, I think, you know, everything we do should have an insight that's tied to it. We have become extremely proficient across the whole marketing organization in having all of our work spur out of briefs, and just the importance of briefs, not only when working with external partners, but internal as well, and sharing insights across the teams. I think before we were one centralized organization and working with others, it was harder to share learnings and share insights. But now with Bridget's team and my team and really everyone on the call, it's just a much more open and shareable stance. And I think too, the work is never done just because we had it on our roadmap and we want the work to be done. The work is done based on consumer needs. So we, you know, if we don't have an insight, we look to our resources to find one. So Alex's team can pull data on what people are searching for. We can see on our owned content and our blog posts what is popping. I think one funny, if you look at it this way, example, like a lot of divorce content was spiking during the pandemic, which we know now makes sense, but being able to see how our customers, and I mean B2B and B2C, are reacting should and can influence the content that we're developing. You know, the content I feel like used to be native or owned or a straight up ad, and we've just kind of moved more so into this exchange of information and looking to the performance of the content we have and influencing the content that we create to ensure, you know, we are a 175+ year old company, but our content, I would argue, is still and always will be super relevant.
Yeah, and I can jump in and talk a little bit about the B2c B2b interaction. So with our national advertising campaign, our main message is really for a consumer audience, but we think about that as kind of the halo message for the brand to change perceptions in the marketplace. And we alluded to this playbook that we've kind of started to pull together just this year is now this year, our new consumer campaign called Uncomfortable Truths has been in market for a year. It's now time to bring that to some of our B2B partners. So what we've done is kind of in a very insight-driven way, distilled down a lot of different facts and truths that resonate with other products and distribution lines across the business, and distilled that into a strategic artifact that our marketing partners can use to brief their team. So we're really trying to align at that strategic level to then produce work that feels like it's all coming from the same brand and the same voice.
Yeah. And keep in mind, like I say this every day probably, so sorry for everyone who hears it from me, but our B2B audiences are also consumers. So the work that Christa is doing with national partners and with tentpole media and our Uncomfortable Truths campaign is also being seen by our field force or our brokers. So when we come to them with content to use with their consumers or with content to pull them into the brand, there's already this halo that we can play off of. And we've married quite nicely the B2C communications and trickled them down to B2B communications as well.
And Alex, I think you should talk a little bit about, how we've pivoted from a consumer standpoint, we're always on, but I think it would be great to talk about the journey work that's underway, and then the new work on B2B as well.
Yeah.
And some of the how we take tests and turn them into, scaled programs.
Absolutely. And I think it all started from a lot of the work that Bridget did when we re-centralized and teaching us that our insights for B2B also worked for B2C, or some of the changes that we made in perception and behavior pivoted across both audiences, which allowed us to then turn our campaigns to always on, right? And not go out of market and take an approach that did focus on uncomfortable truths at the awareness level, and then drive that through into cultural moments to change consideration across different channels. Then we would pulse with additional incremental things for, say, a B2B audience. Here's new research that we've put out on the relationship people have with money, or here's some additional work that we've done around conversations people are afraid to have with their financial professional, right? So those were things that we could pulse out while we still had the backdrop up of uncomfortable truths, while we still were present in cultural moments. And then that led to an always on approach where we also aren't afraid to ask for the quote unquote sale, right? Where we are retargeting and sequencing people and taking them on a journey from, who we are, and we're willing to help you through uncomfortable conversations. We're willing to help you with financial planning. But at some point you have to click the ad. At some point you have to visit the website. At some point you have to call your advisor. And so we turned those campaigns into the backdrop for us to run these really innovative digital programs where we could take somebody from unaware through converted. And it all, again, stemmed from insights and some great work Bridget did, but we do it across B2B and B2C. And maybe the language changes slightly, but the brand doesn't. You always know it's MassMutual because we're so consistent, because the teams work so well together.
Yeah. And Bridget, you've been such a great partner to us too. Like, I think it's interesting when we look at performance, I think what we love about our partnership is the insights you bring on the media front.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I tell anybody who will listen that I'm very, very spoiled with the team that I get to partner with, because they're hungry for insights and they're hungry for measurements. And I don't have to do that hard upskilling of why that matters. So the two key points that, I would want to, bring out, and Alex alluded to this, was this idea of not being afraid to run tests and say, we need to learn some things so that we can then scale them. So really, thinking about how we can take some of this great insights-driven work and then apply it and then scale it. The other piece too that I would layer in is we live in a dynamic world and people are always changing and evolving too. So I think as well, this mindset of an insight right now is not, it's not static, and that we reserve the right to learn, test, evolve, with that. It's really around an evolution. And then tying all of that back to, as Kristin mentioned, with our media mix model, we can actually say there is ROI and business impact to everything that the team is doing, which has always been a struggle for marketing, and that we're not, you know, heads of sales that we can say, hey, we sold this number of things. Everybody in leadership can kind of nod their head and say, yes, we know there's value in marketing, but now we can say how much, and that's incredibly, incredibly empowering. So.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a great dovetail into our second section, where we're just going to talk about now, you know, further dive into these discoveries and also the future impact. I think, Bridget, it'd be great to dive into just, we're seeing all these new players impact media. I think particularly in the financial services and investment space. I know we should call it the crypto bowl, you know, from Sunday. And aside from being a geriatric millennial loving the halftime show, it was all crypto ads, and it was really eye-opening. So I think it'd be great to hear how, you know, with audience insights, all these things you're seeing, how is MassMutual now pivoted, you know, with these players impacting the space in crypto and sports betting and investment apps, and more democratization of investment. How are you pivoting to more younger and diverse audiences, and what have you found?
I think what to your point around, you know, the crypto bull, and we've all heard about, you know, who was claiming it. Was it the Gen Xers versus the millennials that, you know, it was for them? I think what's interesting is that, you know, for this industry, is whether it's crypto, whether it's NFTs, whatever it is, there is now excitement and, dare I say, sexiness to financial services that never really existed before. And I think for us, it's actually really exciting that people are leaning forward and engaging in ways. Now, that's not saying that MassMutual needs to jump in and start offering NFTs, or I actually need to figure out really what are NFTs, because it's just such a vague idea to me. But it's really around the idea of saying there are more people leaning forward into financial services, and they're not the affluent boomers that we all think of as, you know, the core target. So for us, it's around recognizing that trend in the marketplace and saying, who are those people leaning forward? What can we know about them, and how can we support them on this journey? Because is crypto this big bubble that's going to pop like .com back in the early aughts? I don't know. While I might, you know, have some great pulse on insights, I do not yet have cracked the code on a actual crystal ball. But I think for us, it's really kind of, dare I say, it's reading the room, understanding who's engaging and how we can support them through that journey in that insights-driven way.
I think we wanted to cover next just how this has also enabled a huge, you know, culture of testing and innovation, as you spoke about earlier. I know Christa and Bailey, you know, talking about this test and learn strategy and how it's built out new best practices, and how you're more digitally enabling everything that you're doing across all media.
Yeah, I can take that one. And also, just to allude to the crypto bull, I think we also, from a media strategy perspective, we really shifted some of our best practices this past year because of a lot of the new entrants into the marketplace. We established kind of a balance between long-term investment partners and then like a flex fund that we plan quarterly, so we can use inputs from Bridget's team and the media mix modeling to kind of test and learn throughout the year. But in terms of testing and learning, I could just touch on over the past 2 years, we have been reserving some of our media dollars for this test and learn and optimizations that come from Bridget and her team. And a couple factors that turned into part of our always on strategy was this idea of buying continuity TV through audience driven platforms, and then also retargeting our TV viewers on audio. So those were two kind of significant shifts in our overall media plan that took dollars away from like the traditional terrestrial radio partners that we were buying with, and also the direct to broadcast partners relationships, and kind of funneled those dollars into these new ways of buying our target audience. And we've seen really great gains over the past couple years.
Yeah, and I think, Christa, to build on that, for our B2B audiences or our distribution channel audiences, typically where you would expect to see MassMutual show up in terms of media is, you know, LinkedIn and trade publications. But there is this this want and need, especially now that we can see how audiences are over-indexing and what their media consumption habits are when they're acting as consumers. There is this new outlook as, yes, we should probably show up in the financial services trade. Everyone is used to seeing us there, and we still need to be there, but we can test in these other platforms that are more of a surprise. Or we can, Alex, work with your team on the programmatic initiative to find these audiences in the places that aren't as obvious. That's not a hot take by any means, but with our insights, we can now show up in other places that are a little more surprising and kind of keep the message from MassMutual fresh for these audiences.
Yeah, and on that point, Billy, I think, one thing I want to mention also from a media standpoint that hasn't been discussed yet is we've found great success in leveraging publishers around cultural moments. And, one of the things as a brand that we strive to do is have an unmissable presence in culture. And that can come to life in all kinds of different ways. But we have successfully partnered with two of our favorites, the Washington Post and the New York Times, on huge cultural platforms that each partner has launched. And through partnering with them, we're able to find a super sharp audience that we're trying to reach. And we're also able to sort of partner up to bring co-created content together to life. And last year, with the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre, MassMutual partnered with the New York Times to produce, the Tulsa Massacre was the burning of 100 Black-owned businesses in a section of Tulsa called Greenwood. And so to flip the lens on what happened 100 years ago, we created a shoppable storefront on the NewYorkTimes.com that had never been done before. And we brought 100 Black-owned small businesses a digital storefront. 70 of them were curated just across America. And the other 30 came from, our existing MassMutual customers that we were able to, help in terms of building new sales and revenue for them. And that was a great way for us to have not only a presence in culture, but something that was authentic and made sense for MassMutual, because business owners are a core target of our audience.
Alex, I think you're going to hop in. So
yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I like one thing that we're all kind of talking around, and I think it's important that we, especially as we talk about the future of media, with the insights and data that we've been able to generate across channels, we've also gotten a lot better at leveraging the best elements of different channels in our media planning. So taking a data-driven and almost digital media buying approach to national television media buying, right? That's, if we talk about the future of media, it is taking the best of our various elements and combining them in a way that makes sense for us, right? And I saw that there's a question that we'll probably get to in a little bit about programmatic and fraud and a cookieless future. And this is a period of transition for us. So we have brought everyone together, and now the focus is what worked over here, and are there elements of that we can take, right? We know that radio works, but it doesn't have to be terrestrial radio. And in fact, we can get better measurement if we go with digital radio. But what are the elements of terrestrial that we want to keep, right? Live reads, for example, were always really impactful for us. So then you end up looking at podcasts. And these are the things that all marketers are going through, but our centralized function coupled with just doing it. And that's the culture of testing, right? Where we went from buying a lot of tentpoles to realizing that tentpole plus frequency had a huge impact. So we needed to achieve that frequency, even though CPMs and GRPs are going through the roof, or cost per rating points going through the roof. So we had to find new ways to find these audiences. So we used our data, we used our insights, and we used new ways of buying on old channels or old ways of buying on new channels. And we've seen a lot of success with that combination of thinking.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect segue to what's next and upcoming initiatives and focuses for MassMutual. I think that's a great transition into what we were talking about, which is taking best practices from your tentpole media and translating that to streaming specifically. I think obviously you endeavored to share, that's a huge goal for this year. So you could share some insights there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I can take that one. So we're very interested in the streaming space, and we've definitely dipped our toes into the Peacocks and the Hulus of the world. But I don't know if there's shared sentiment with others on this call around kind of the frustration with the way targeting is enabled on the streaming platforms. There really isn't any right now, and it's all just being built out currently. So we're really staying close to that and kind of evolving the way we think about how we're reaching our audience on those platforms. Maybe we're taking best practices from how we activate podcasts, where we're looking at the context of the show versus who's actually watching it, in terms of creating that message. So that's definitely something that's on our radar.
Yes, and things right with cookie lists, right? Focusing more on the context. I think another thing we wanted to focus on, and maybe have Bridget and Kristin speak about, is just how much, resonance of being purpose-driven is going to remain, and also the consumer feedback about how much that matters to them. So maybe I think through the Live Mutual project and other things, how is MassMutual keeping that at the forefront?
So, I always, one of my closest colleagues at MassMutual is Dennis Touquette. He's the president of our foundation. And, when I joined MassMutual, he was on the interview panel, and we talked a lot about our current MassMutual's purpose inherently works for purpose as a purpose-driven brand, right? So helping people secure their futures and protect those that they love. And so the Live Mutual project, which was launched several years ago, is really designed to bring financial resiliency to financial deserts across America. And there are many of those that exist. We did a great partnership with the Washington Post a few years ago to show the difference between a financially resilient community and one that's considered a financial desert, and what the difference is in terms of how people live, the resources that are available to them, and really what that means. And so one of our big efforts this year is to scale the Live Mutual projects to more communities across America. And our intent really is to identify common threads that exist across the communities, so that we can, sort of help bring more well-being there. But we're not going to do it alone. And as a company that's mutually owned, so we're a mutual company, which means we're owned by our policyholders. We are going to be looking for other people who want to step forward, join us, and help us take action. So a lot to come this year from MassMutual in terms of purpose and scaling that Live Mutual project. And we'll do it in ways that, include traditional media to get the word out, but also obviously tons and tons of digital media, not only to reach those people who we think can become change makers, but also to reach the audience that can greatly benefit from the programs that we will be bringing to local communities. So we're super excited about that.
I think in terms of consumer trends, so as we mentioned, we're engaging with the younger audiences. And I think that over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of evidence to showcase the importance, especially of those younger audiences, of those purpose-driven brands and giving back and being society-centric. That's a term that I've kind of invented. I don't know that it exists, but really that focus on the greater good. And we're seeing more and more, especially with the millennial audience, that they will go out of their way to find brands, engage with brands, and want to work with brands that are benefiting the greater good. So I think for us too, all of these pieces dovetail together really well, that this is our brand vision. And it's not new. This is what it has been. This is what we have been working towards. So I think for us, coupling that with some of the insights around, where we are going as a society, it just tees up very, very, very nicely.
When I joined MassMutual too, I think someone asked the question, why did you choose MassMutual as a brand? And first of all, it's because of the team on the call here, but also we are a company that doesn't just talk the talk. There's tons of internal programs that we do as employees, that we have for our customers, that are just all laddering up to our brand purpose. I think one that has launched in the last 2 years is our supplier diversity initiative, where, amongst media and creative spends, typically only 3 to 10% of that spend goes to diverse owned partners, which is huge. So our goal as a team is to hit at least 20% over the next 5 years. And there's a big goal across the company. It's not just marketing, but there's, different ways. We've done tons of RFPs. We have diversity language in all of our contracts. So it's just important to us as a company, but we're also looking to partner with other companies that either embody that diversity or uphold the same want and need in their partnerships.
Great point, Bailey. Awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think, so we time it correctly. I think we have about like 4 minutes before we do a small Q&A, but would love each of you to speak, obviously, very shortly and the testing and learning world at MassMutual. There's so many things you're probably working on, but for your predictive future, what do you think you'll be working on in the next, 3 to 6 months, or what do you think the future holds for you in your role at MassMutual?
Sure, I'll jump in because I know we didn't touch on cookieless, and I don't know how many digital folks we have on the line who are just hanging with bated breath waiting for that conversation. But as somebody who focuses a lot of my energy on digital, I know the next 6 months for me are going to be spent on accumulating and leveraging first-party data in a privacy-first manner that allows us to continue to talk to our audiences. And it's such a big focus for us as a company. We want to have conversations with our customers and our prospects, learn about them. Again, privacy compliant, safe manner, secure. But we want to kill the cookie, right? Like maybe we've imbued this one thing with too much power, but conceptually, we don't need to pay to have a conversation or to learn something about our key audiences. We need to ask them. We need to listen to them. And that's what we've been focused on for the last year. And I know that that's going to be the next 6 months. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do things like server-side integrations, right? CAPI Gateway and all of this other work that we're doing to ensure that we do have good data connections between our partners and our own internal databases. But yeah, the key for us in the future proofing is always in great creative and being in the right place. But then now we have the opportunity to use first-party data in a better way, or call it zero-party data if you want to be clever. But like, this is what we're trying to do, right? We want to ask people how they feel and how we can help them, and then deliver against that expectation. And that's going to eat our world up for the next little bit, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I'll pile on there and just say, for me, it's really about how do we take what we've learned. If you look at our category, MassMutual spends probably 1/3 of what our key competitors do. And yet what we're seeing in our brand health data is that we're truly are punching above our weight, and we're making gains on our 3 core KPIs at a greater degree than our competitors are. And that's a combination of 2 things: being really smart about where we invest money, combining tentpole with frequency, and what that frequency mix looks like. And I think for us, it's really going to be about how do we take our tentpole playbook and apply it to streaming, and how do we continue to have messages that are about close personal relationships. Like the idea of Live Mutual when we relaunched the brand was about societal issues and how people were looking out for one another. But the pandemic has brought looking out for one another into a much closer focus on personal relationships. And we've now got a campaign and message that is breaking through there. So for us, it's going to be about taking our playbook, learning from what some of the cryptos are doing. They're following the financial services playbook, which is interesting and something we're looking at. But how do we apply what we know and have learned to streaming as a tentpole philosophy? That's all I have for this. Just that small thing. I don't know, Christa, Bailey, Bridget, what else there is.
One other thing I'll just add in terms of our media mix in general, and I know we spent a ton of time talking about the future of media and digital, but we actually want to explore print and what that could mean for our media mix. And obviously lots of people say print is dead, and there's different ways to consume the written word. So we're kind of doing a strategic undertaking around what that could mean. How do we leverage the best of print, and how do we also capitalize on the different ways that people are consuming content through the traditional like print publications.
I'm totally borrowing this line from someone, Colin Burns, who's on our team, our product team here, our product marketing team. He said this morning, you know, how do we create campaigns and creative to support our products? So it would be B2B campaigns that B2C marketers can be jealous of. So that's a big focus of my team.
I like that line, Bailey.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's really around leveraging new tools, new ways to find great insights so that I can share them. So that's all also constantly evolving. So it's not just about mining for the next great insight, but it's also understanding where can that come from. So that's fun in and of itself because I love my job and I'm a big data nerd. So.
Okay, so we have one question that came through in the Q&A box, and then we'll talk about some of the open rules at MassMutual quickly. So if someone would love to answer, are you able to share how MassMutual ensures media cost and quality from your agency partners?
I'll take the first 15 seconds, and then Krista, if you want to follow up with some additional. So we did in-house all of our digital media in partnership with our media agency of record. So we opted for an in-house model for programmatic, for search, for social. So all of our media buying, if there's a problem, somebody comes and knocks on my cubicle and asks what's going on. But how do we ensure quality? It's the same debate that I heard on the previous session that we'll have probably until the end times. You do the best you can and you realize that there's going to be some slippage. And so we use third-party verification. We use inclusion lists in all of our programmatic. We look for additional audit and verification measures on a quarterly or biannual basis. But we recognize that unfortunately it comes with the territory, right? Like we can't, we are not fraud-free, and we know that. The moment we re-entered the programmatic space, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. But it's one of the reasons that we in-housed it. We can move faster. And the best agency relationships we have, which I think we have here at MassMutual, don't always move at that speed, at least in digital, but they support us in such a wonderful way, right? They're in all of our planning sessions with us. They bring new partners to the table. So it's a two-way relationship with our agency, but the actual hands-on keyboards has been brought in-house, which makes us a little bit, I think, nimbler than we used to be.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a minute left, would love for you all to talk about open roles. Obviously the best place to check it all out and how you can be a part of this awesome team.
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. We'll take that plug. So we are hiring. We're hiring in Boston in our new office, 17-story building at the Seaport in the Innovation District. We have open roles in brand marketing, SEO, integrated marketing, and as well as digital marketing. And Bridget, I don't know if there's any, I think there may be some open roles over on the performance and analytics teams as well. All the jobs can be found on massmutual.com in our career section, but anyone that's on this call and interested in learning more can also reach out to any of us on LinkedIn with a message, and we will follow up. So looking to fill this slate with some great talent out there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. Hopefully we came across as a team that likes working together, because we definitely are.
Thanks, team, Alex, Krista, Bailey, Kathleen, for sharing some of those insights and also some of the opportunities there at MassMutual as well. So hopefully some of the folks on the call take advantage of that.